cat crawling around here. Hopefully you guys heard purring while I was gone.
I've got it now. All right. Are we streaming?
I don't know. I still hear you in Mimo Live, so I don't think so.
I think we are. Yes, we are.
Okay, how come I still hear you in Mimo Live? Oh, we went straight to streaming.
Yes.
Oh, so we're live.
We're live.
I was just like walking around doing stuff in my room. Hi, everybody.
Yes, we are live.
Bring my camera down.
Oh, you know what?
My hair. What?
Yeah, Wi-Fi is still off. Good. All right.
All right, everybody. Here we are. My voice just sounds fantastic, doesn't it?
Yes.
Steve, you're supposed to make a snarky comment.
It is. I'm still dealing with some stuff here. Hold on.
Okie dokie. Better than last week? Yeah, it got way worse. In fact, I'm going to have to thank Sandy for suggesting that I not just wait a day and hope it gets better, because that didn't work at all. All right, we got a little bit of a slow start here. Oh, my light isn't on. There we go. Let me shut my door here.
Okay.
You have a cat? Hope that's okay. So, I should probably do roll call. No, Ellen, you haven't told me to do roll call yet. How can I do roll call before you tell me? All right. Sounds like a backwoods cuss word. What does? Roll call? Or Allison's dulcet tones. Frog sausage. We debated whether I should have hot tea with honey or just go straight to bourbon hot toddies for the show. Are you there, Steve?
Yes.
All right. Are you in good shape?
Still collecting things here, trying to...
All right. Sandy says she votes for the hot toddy. Alan, when are you going to tell me to do roll call? I'm going to have to start without you. You know how I feel about that. There we go. We have roll call. We've got Alan and Kevin and Bruce and Jason and Frank and Jill and John and Mike and Rick and Sandy and Steve and Michael. Man, it's packed tonight. Was everybody here to find out whether I have a voice? Oh, Richard from Alaska's here. Hot dogs. And let's see. We got a Titan bot. We might have Rose in there. Yes, he enjoyed the silence. He's a little snot Rose. Yes, he did. It was, I hate losing my voice, and I lose it usually once a year. And for some strange reason, I did not lose my voice in 2020. So we had one good thing. Oh, I didn't do roll call. Yes, you did do roll call. Alan. So, Alan, there's no live show next week. No live show next week. I want you to type it out for me right now, Alan. I want you to acknowledge no live show on the 25th. Can you do that for me? Because I hate it when I find people have lost it and show up. All right, I am gonna go ahead and start.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you good?
Oh, I need to mute you on one of my devices.
All right. I did a pre-recording, so this shouldn't be too bad.
You know, we haven't checked playback. Maybe we should do that real quick.
All right, here's some playback. Was that okay? A little loud?
I could hear it. It was kind of short. Never heard that song. Oh, that song.
What?
Got it. I think he heard it. It was East Joke.
Can you guys hear it? Thank you, Alan. There's no live shows on the 25th.
Okay, I think we're good. They heard it.
All right. I think we should start.
Yep.
It's 5:06. You should scroll back, though, in the chat and look at what people wrote when I said the Earth, the world. What did I say? Oh, the world won't come to an end if we don't start on time. There's a whole bunch of really funny comments.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
All right, I'm muting you then. Oh, you muted yourself. I gotta do my cough button a lot here. All right, here we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, July 18th, 2021, and this is show number 845. Last week, when I was debating with the live audience on whether to maybe just wait a day to record to see if my voice came back, Sandy, amongst other people, asked the great question, what if it actually gets worse tomorrow? That's a good thing I listened to her, as my voice got progressively worse over the next few days and is now back to, maybe 60%. Well, in the middle of the week, Jill from the Northwoods asked if I'd like her to do the read on one of my articles. It's really, really hard to read something written in another person's voice, but these are desperate times, so I took her up on her offer. She'll be telling you about the Coco Power 15.6-inch USB-C display that I bought for Lindsay. I guarantee you, it sounds way better than listening to my voice. Now, next week is when Steve and I will be going to Glacier National Park in Montana with Lindsay and Nolan and our grandchildren for a week. I asked for help with material, so you'll still have a show on August 1st, and boy, howdy did people come through for us. Bart, Ed Tobias, George Goucher all recorded articles for us, and Alistair recorded 3 articles. I learned an interesting thing about handing the show off to Alistair. It's the assembly and technical delivery of the show that is scary and stressful for him, and creating content is actually much more joyful. This is actually great because I've got assembly and delivery pretty much down, and it's the content that's hard when I want to play in the great outdoors. If you've been working on a review, still finish it and send it in, and I'll play it in an upcoming episode. I always love listener contributions, so bring it on. Now, we're leaving for Montana on Sunday, July 25th in the morning, which means there will be no live show on Sunday, July 21st. Sunday, July 25th. Tell your friends, because it just breaks my heart when I open up Discord after a no live show Sunday and I see someone asking, hey, where is everybody?
Okay, I have a question.
What?
And boy, howdy did people come through. I guess I haven't heard that phrase before.
Boy howdy?
Yeah.
Anybody ever heard boy howdy?
Boy howdy. Is that like from the Midwest?
Yeah, there's a thing.
Boy howdy.
I don't know.
Like howdy doody?
Yeah.
Interesting. You learn something every day.
It's not very often that you hear something from that I say.
No.
That's
given that we've been
new.
together a couple years.
A couple years. Yeah, how long's it been? Uh-oh. Hey, everybody. Is that boy howdy? I did a chapter mark and I saved Kevin.
Oh, did we?
I did
Look
a
at
chapter
that.
mark.
Got
He
her in
started
there.
saying chapter marks before I finished recording. Come on. Let me do it first, right?
Oh. Well, you got
All
it in
right.
there, it looks like.
I did, but he started bugging me about it before I
Gotcha.
before I even did it. All right. We are going to talk solar.
Yes. Solar is cool. I like your mug. My mug, actually.
It is. I bought 2 of them.
Oh, his and hers. That's right. I forgot.
You should show him the shirt I got you. All right. Here we go.
Next week.
Next week. There's no live show next week, Steve. Didn't you see what Alan wrote? No live show on the 25th.
2 weeks.
All right. Here we go. Oh, Steve muted himself. If you're a data nerd, you really, really need to get solar. When last we left our heroes, our solar installation had just been completed. To review, we had 22 370-watt solar panels installed, giving us a maximum theoretical instantaneous power generation of 8.14 kilowatts. The little inverters on the back of each panel do some digital switching to convert to the 240-volt standard we have in the United States, and that conversion, plus the combining of all the inverters, has about a 20% loss. So doing a little math that won't even scare David Roth, 80% of our theoretical max of 8.14 kilowatts gives an actual maximum of 6.5 kilowatts of instantaneous power generation, which is what we see when our panels are fully illuminated at midday. Knowing the maximum power you can actually create under perfect conditions helps you to understand the data you can see on the different tools for monitoring your solar power. Kilowatts, as I mentioned, is a measure of instantaneous power. If you look at your electric bill, you won't see anything about kilowatts. Instead, you'll see that you're charged by the kilowatt hour. A kilowatt hour is the measure of energy and is the power generated or consumed averaged over an entire hour. Now, my brain thinks it would make more sense to call this kilowatts per hour, but this is brought to you by the same electrical engineers who say that the electrons go one way, so the current goes in the opposite direction. They basically hate us all. Our solar system is made by a company called Enphase, but they call their solar monitoring app Enlighten. I think their goal is to make sure you can't possibly remember the name of the app when searching for it on your phone. You can also access your solar data via Enphase's web interface. You can just imagine how many times Steve and I refreshed our screens within the first couple of days trying to see data from our solar panels. The experience was very disappointing. Our Enphase system came with a cellular modem installed, which they told us was an advantage over doing Wi-Fi. If your Wi-Fi is dodgy where the electrical panel is installed, then cellular would be an advantage. But if you have good Wi-Fi, it's definitely a disadvantage. The huge downside of the cellular connection is that the data uploads at a very infrequent rate. Sometimes it would be 40 minutes in between updates. I think we saw well over an hour of between updates once or twice, and it definitely wasn't refreshing at the rate Steve and I wanted. We were at Lindsay's house right after our solar system got turned on, and we were really frustrated by the lack of instant gratification. When Steve got home, Steve used the app to connect our system to Wi-Fi, and finally we had updates every 15 minutes, which was much more gratifying to watch. The Enphase system has 3 major tabs. On the status tab for a current day, you can see the peak power, the total energy produced for the day, and see how it compares to the day before. Because they think you're a moron, they show you how many hours you could have burned a 100 watt Dang it, it's too good of a line to mess up. Because they think you're a moron, they show you how many hours you could have burned a 100 watt light bulb for the energy you generated. Here's a hint. It's the kilowatt hours you generated divided by 100. It's cute and it was fun the first time I saw it, but after the first time, I think it's kind of wasted space on the screen. The energy tab on the Enphase app is where the real fun is. You get an hourly bar graph for the day you've chosen with an overlay line of the previous day if you like. It's fun to compare day to day. The screenshot I put in the show notes illustrates a day where we had a really nice curve hitting the peak of our system, but then a brief moment of clouds a little bit before 6 p.m. The overlay of the previous day shows a huge dip down in energy production around 1 p.m. Now, the last tab will be uninteresting 99% of the time, and yet it's really important to check regularly, and that's the Array tab. When you view the array, you see all of your solar panels in their physical orientation on your roof, and you can see how much energy each panel or /inverter has created over the day. Inverters evidently fail from time to time, so it's important to glance at this tab regularly. Both Lindsay and Kyle keep mumbling. Ellen, don't yell chapter mark at me while I'm in the middle of recording. That's just distracting. It doesn't help. Both Lindsay and Kyle had inverters fail on their systems, and their frequency of monitoring the status of their inverters directly correlated to how much money they spent buying electricity instead of generating it themselves. The Array Health tab lets you see at a glance whether every inverter is operating. In the morning, each little solar panel graphic is shown in dark blue, and as it gets filled in with sunlight during the day, it turns to a lighter and lighter shade of blue. At midday, our panels on the east roof are a darker blue than the ones on the south roof, and the panel shaded by the chimney in the morning is a darker blue as well. While the color-changing aspect is useful for situational awareness of the health of the array, the numbers on the chart require math to interpret. Instead of showing the instantaneous power in kilowatts, the panels show the energy in watt hours that they have generated over the elapsed time of the current day. This allows you to view your panels to see which ones are giving you the most benefit, which is most useful if you take a look at them after the entire day has passed. The most interesting thing we've learned so far is that our west-facing panels are actually generating more per panel than our south-facing panels. Living near the coast in California, the most common weather forecast is early morning low clouds followed by hazy afternoon sunshine. In other words, the sun has a clearer shot at our panels in the afternoon than during earlier parts of the day. Those 3 tabs are pretty much all you can get with the Enlighten app. In settings, you can turn on the currency equivalency. That's not what I want to do. Those 3 tabs. God, that voice is nasty to listen to. I am so sorry. Maybe after a week in the mountains. Tea. Drink tea. Those 3 tabs are pretty much all you can get with the Enlighten app. In settings, you can turn on the currency equivalent so you can see how much money you're saving by generating the energy. But you can only put in one rate for your electricity cost per kilowatt hour. Now, maybe you live in a place where time of use isn't a thing, but we have a super complex system of electricity cost as a function of time, day, and season. Now, it's designed to encourage you to do things like not run your dishwasher or charge your electric vehicle between 5 and 8 p.m. when the load is the highest. Now, I'm not against it, but it's super complicated. In the summer, we have peak, off-peak, and mid-peak hours, where mid-peak only exists on weekends. In winter, we have off-peak, super off-peak, and mid-peak, but it's a full 7 days a week. I definitely won't dig deeper into these details, but the delta between these rates can be as much as 28%. In other words, the Enphase app allowing us to only type in one number for our cost per kilowatt hour is pretty much useless. As cool as it is to see how much solar energy we're collecting after you spend a lot of money on panels, you really want to be able to compare it to how much you're consuming. Did I buy enough panels? Did I buy too few? Will I really generate more energy than I consume? The only way we had to answer this question was to stand at the electric meter and wait until the display showed us the net power going back to the grid. That's generated minus consumed. It's a bit tedious to stand outside looking at the meter, and it seemed like there should be a better way. Around this time, listener and actual real-life friend from my work days, Jamie Cox, wrote a comment on my blog post that he has the same solar system we got, and he started to give us some advice. We took the discussion offline to email as it was getting pretty detailed on the blog, and pretty soon Steve and Jamie were firing off photos and graphs and getting super nerdy. I love it when my friends get to know Steve, and this was clearly 2 people talking the same language. The main thing we learned from Jamie was a suggestion that we look into buying a Sense Solar. You may remember that at CES in 2020, I interviewed Scott Taylor, VP of Business Development, about their Sense electricity usage monitor. The device we saw at CES plugs into the breaker on your electrical panel and then has 2 clips that encircle the black and red main wires coming out of your main electrical circuit breaker. As Scott explained it to me at CES, the cool thing that Sense does is monitor your energy usage, and it builds a profile of how much energy individual devices in your house are using. Evidently, like 2 different TV models will actually have different signatures for the waveforms of their electrical usage, allowing Sense to even tell which TV is drawing how much energy. I was ready to buy one right away after CES, but a few people who had installed Sense gave me feedback and said that the machine learning model to figure out which devices, which ones were which, didn't really work as well as they sounded. Now, whether or not Sense does a good job of figuring out which devices are which, Jamie gave us a good reason to consider buying the solar version of Sense. He explained that if you buy the solar model, you can get that elusive metric we really want, a comparison of not just our energy used, but our consumed. He explained that if you start right there, I think. Save, that's a good idea. He explained that if you buy the solar model, you can get that elusive metric we really want, a comparison of not just our generated energy, but our consumed energy as well. Not only that, the graphs Jamie showed us were practically real time, not this silly every 15 minutes sampling nonsense we were getting from the Enlighten app. The Sense Energy model. Come on, get it right. The Sense Energy. Where is it? Where was I? The Sense Energy monitor with solar runs $350 on Amazon right now. The Sense with solar comes with 4 clips, 2 to encircle your solar main wires and 2 to encircle your main breaker wires. It also comes with the Sense monitor, which is a small orange box that reads the current traveling through those wires, computes the generated and consumed power, and then transmits that data to the cloud. The data being sent to the cloud allows you to access the information from a dedicated mobile app or the web. The instructions for Sense suggest an electrician install the device as you're connecting into your breakers and turning off power. As handy as Steve is with this stuff, even he had an electrician help us hook it up, and he was glad he invested the money in having it done correctly. As soon as the power and solar were flipped back on, we had instant gratification with our Sense Solar. The number of graphs with clear, actionable information is fantastic. From talking to Jamie, it sounds like Sense takes literally months to populate with good information about how much power your individual devices are using. In a few days of watching it, it has found 2 refrigerators, and now it just found our garage door, so that's something. However, we found an easier way to measure the impact of the different devices. Turn them on and off. Since you've got almost real-time information from Sense, you can tell which device is doing what profile. Steve turned the oven on to broil, and we saw a massive spike. Our baseline total house power was running about 1,000 watts at the time, and when he flipped on the oven to preheat it for just a few seconds, the graph dramatically jumped up to 1,900 watts. Seriously, our whole house was using half of what the oven wanted all by itself. The Sense interface lets you pinch to zoom in and out so you can obsessively watch the graph second by second, or pinch in and see a whole day on screen at once. Looking at the entire day, I can easily identify the spikes in power usage. One day we ran the dishwasher, which turns on the heating element in 2 different phases, and I can see both peaks at around 1.2 kilowatts. And then I can see a giant peak for when Steve was roasting asparagus for me in the oven. A cool part of Sense Solar is that the energy consumed is superimposed on a graph of our energy generation. Have I found the garage door yet?
Time for a save, maybe?
I did.
Good job.
Actually, Steve mostly barbecues, so I don't know whether natural gas to barbecue is better than using... our energy comes mostly from natural gas here, but it's turned into electricity. That's probably more loss, isn't it, Steve?
Yes. Yeah, it's probably more well, I believe so. It may depend on what you're doing with it, but I think burning methane, it does produce CO2, but that's not the worst. Methane itself is a pretty bad greenhouse gas. It's one of the worst. Not as bad as or CO2.
Natural gas and methane are the same thing?
Yes. Natural gas is made of methane, CH4.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay. All right.
It's just got smell added to it, so you can detect a leak. Methane is odorless.
All right. Okay, other hydrocarbons too. Good to know. Your wingman doesn't like asparagus, Steve.
Well,
called it stinky poo-poo, I think. Asparagus yucky poo.
Yeah, asparagus
He taught me to like it, Kevin. I didn't like it, but the way Steve makes it, it's delicious.
Well, and you didn't like Brussels sprouts either, right?
Yeah, but Brussels sprouts, you just cook them in bacon and you can put it with it. He uses bacon and maple syrup.
Yeah, it's hard to go wrong. I mean, you could put lima beans in that. They probably taste good.
No, lima beans are where I draw the line.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
going to
keep
going.
Back to the show.
I mentioned earlier that we live where our energy charges depend on the time of use. It kind of reminds me of the 1990s when cell phone bills were broken down by the time of day. Now, if you're too young to know about this, We actually paid by the minute of talk time back then, and we paid a different rate during the day, during the evening, and on weekends. Drove me bananas. Anyway, back to time of use billing for electricity. Enlighten only allowed us to enter that one single number for our cost per kilowatt. But Sense has a section where you can type in as many separate rates as you want. I can't believe Steve's dedication here. He typed in all 8 sets of times, dates, seasons, and costs. But I'm so glad he did, because now there's a new graph that's even cooler. Below the cute animation showing how much energy you're putting back into the grid or taking out of the grid, there's a huge graph. Oh man, you guys. Oh man. I never talked about the cute graph.
Yeah, I think you may have skipped over a section here. I
I did.
In a very rare turn of events, is that where you left off?
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, because that's my favorite part. Okay, starting that again. In a very rare turn of events, I had the opportunity to watch our solar production while it was actually raining in July in Southern California. It was a freak summer storm, lasted a couple of hours, during which we got a massive 0.02 inches of rain. Now, while that's not anything to write a blog post about, I discovered something else cool I can do with the Sense app. Well, looking at the energy graphs, in the upper left, there's a little sun icon showing the instantaneous power generation. I noticed that while it was still fully overcast, it said we were generating 1,117 watts of power. In a moment of childlike exploration, I tapped on the sun icon and discovered possibly my favorite graphic in the Sense app. It's a little graphic showing the power traveling between 3 icons: a little house, a little sun, and an electrical tower representing the grid. It showed that while it was completely overcast, we were generating 1,117 watts of power, and of that, 1,006 watts was powering our home, and the remaining 111 watts was going back to the grid. The little animated arrows, it had little animated arrows showing the energy flow into our home and the grid, and it made me so happy. This is what it's all about. Now, I mentioned earlier that we live where our energy charges depend on the time of use. Reminds me of the 1990s when cell phone bills were broken down by time of day. If you're too young to know about this, we actually paid by the minute of talk time, and we paid a different rate during the day, during the evening, on weekends. If it was a Thursday on a month with an R in it, you'd pay a different rate. It was a big mess. But anyway, back to time of use billing for electricity. Enlighten only allowed us to enter one single number for our cost per kilowatt, but Sense has a section where you can type in as many separate rates as you want. I can't believe Steve's dedication. He typed in all 8 sets of times, dates, seasons, and costs. And I'm so glad he did, because now we've got a graph that's even cooler than everything else. Excuse me? Below my favorite animation showing how much energy you're putting back into the grid or taking out of the grid, there's a usage graph by day, week, year, or bill. The graph is a kind of a cartoony representation of our up-to-the-minute graph, but below that it has a bunch of metrics. For the day, I can see our total solar production, energy usage, how much went into the grid during the day, and how much we took from the grid across the entire day. This is cool because it takes into account the energy we burned through when the sun was gone, as well as when we were helping to power the grid. I can even see our net production. One night, I happened to wake up around 3 in the morning, and I discovered that my phone was in its charger and still turned on, showing the usage graphs in the Sense app. This was a lucky accident because I was able to find out how much energy we're consuming when we're doing absolutely nothing. They call this the vampire load, the cost of all the devices that are sitting in ready to turn on because we're too impatient to wait a minute mode. You know, TVs, DVRs, and all devices with a little light on them, they're all contributing to this baseline level. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. We burn a little over 600 watts when we're sleeping. By the way, David, that's equivalent to having 6 100-watt light bulbs turned on. The graphs we looked at for the first few days didn't include charging either of our cars. Now, we don't charge very often because we don't drive very much. But we were about to drive to San Diego, so I plugged in Steve's Tesla Model Y. He already had 200 miles of charge available, so I was adding only around 100 miles to charge it to 100%. Battery charging gets very inefficient when you're past about 65% charge, so that last 100 miles took about two and a half hours. During that time, we were able to see from Sense that our energy usage went up by 9,000 watts while the car was charging. Now the question is whether our solar generation was enough to cover that and our normal usage. I was impatient to get this article up, so I didn't wait for the end of the day, and I decided instead to do a little bit of math. 9,000 watts times 2.5 hours was 22.5 kilowatts. I'm sorry, 22.5 kilowatt hours. That sounds about right, as we have 75 watt. Okay, I'll fix that. Muffled twice. I was impatient. Is that real rain? Oh, your cell phone. There you go. I was impatient. I was impatient to get the blog post up, and I didn't want to wait till the end of the day, and I decided to do a little bit of math. 9,000 watts times 2.5 hours is 22.5 kilowatt hours. That sounds about right because we have 75 kilowatt batteries. I'll get it right. 75 kilowatt hour batteries in our Teslas, and I was charging it up by about a third. So 22.5, that's about right. So let's see if we have if we have 22.5 kilowatt hours to spare in our solar generation. Now here's the amazing part. We had a pretty good day of solar generation at close to 50 kilowatt hours, and at the end of the day, even with charging our electric vehicle up 100 miles, we still generated more power than we consumed. It wasn't much, but we actually put in 2.2 kilowatt hours back into the grid. I was amazed by that. I should say, we sized our solar panel arrays to not only cover our energy needs, including charging the cars, but we're also planning on having central air conditioning installed, and we wanted to make sure we had a net zero impact on the grid. With Sense Solar, we'll actually be able to tell whether we've succeeded at that goal without having to wait till the end of the month when we see the bill. I entitled the article, Solar is for Data Nerds, and I think I've supported that statement by my level of enthusiasm for all of these numbers. I can prove it one more way. At 4:15 p.m. on the first day we had Sense Solar, we had been using Sense to monitor our solar energy and our data usage, both, daggnammit, not data usage. I can prove it. I can prove it one more way. At 4:15 p.m. on the first day, while we've been using Sense to monitor our solar array and energy usage, both Steve and my iPhones were dead. Okay, let's take a break from my voice and listen to Jill from the North Woods instead. Okay, that's where I'm going to put this chapter mark in. Talk to me, Steve.
Well done. I saw one little issue. Our panels are on the west. One of our sections is the west roof, not the east, but I will fix that.
When did I say east? I said west.
Well, there were two occurrences. The first was east, the second was west.
Did I say it?
Yeah. I mean, it's in the blog post.
Well, you reviewed the blog post. So.
Yeah, I missed that one. I thought I got it because I apparently I got only one of the occurrences. But I don't think I don't think people will notice.
Nope.
Yes, nobody Mike, we're going to rotate our house to fix this problem. Nice.
Yeah, the slowdown is happening again. Nope. Come on. Mac is getting slow, and then my keystroke doesn't work. Something is slowing me down. What is running? All right. Yeah, let's go listen to Jill. Jill's here, right? I'm going to give my voice a rest.
Jill is here.
Give you,
yes.
You guys a treat. So this is 15 minutes long. But I've pre-recorded my bit. So I think we have time to listen to the whole thing. What do you think?
How many other posts you have?
I said I've pre-recorded mine.
Oh, so you're not... Oh, I got you. All of your... Yeah, we got time.
Yeah, I think we do. Plus, I can rest my voice for a little bit. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, let's take a break from my voice and listen to Jill from the North Woods instead.
Hi, everyone. This is Jill from the North Woods. A year ago, Allison told you about the 2.5 2K USB-C portable display from a company called eYoYo, and she wanted just a bit more screen real estate while doing her live show. And for when she traveled, and a USB-C display sounded like the perfect tool for the job. This was before she got her Pro Display XDR. Most of the USB-C displays out there at an affordable price are 1080p, but she is kind of a screen resolution snob. So she chose the eYoYo with the 2K instead of the 1080p on larger displays. She didn't need the larger display. She figured that a tiny display at a high resolution was better than a big display at a lower resolution. While the tiny 12.5-inch size was exactly what she wanted, and technically is super high resolution, in reality, 2K on that size is way overkill, making everything too tiny to read. She always lowers the resolution to 1080p when she uses it. 1080p is pretty janky looking to her, but at least the text is big enough to read. Additionally, the display's contrast and brightness aren't great. You also have to change the contrast and brightness every single time you use it, with an annoying interface because it defaults to so dim you can barely see it. She still gets use out of it, but she's not sure that she would recommend it to anyone. Luckily, there's no danger of her recommending it anyway, as eYoYo doesn't make that model any longer. She brought the eYoYo display to Lindsay's house for the 4th of July weekend because she was planning on recording the NosillaCast while she was there. This was definitely a case where she truly needed the extra screen real estate. It's much easier to have the audio recording app Hindenburg on a separate display while the show notes are on her MacBook Pro display. While setting it up, Lindsay mentioned that a display like that would be really handy for her upcoming week-long business trip. Allison offered to let her borrow it for her trip. They tested it with her Windows PC that had a USB-C, and it worked just as it does with the Mac. But then she realized she forgot the little stand. The big advantage to these portable USB-C displays is they are just a slab of glass, like an iPad, only thinner. So without the stand, the display's usefulness would be dramatically diminished. They tried to use a stand from a decorative plate and a cookbook stand, and while they worked, they were thick and bulky, which is the last thing you want when packing for a trip. So you know what Allison had to do, right? She had to buy her a better one. The good news is there's a lot of options out there for portable USB-C displays, and a quick sort by highest rated led her to choose the CocoPar 2021 Upgrade 15.6-inch 1080p FHD HDR FreeSync Ultra Slim USB-C portable display with kickstand, dual Type-C, mini HDMI, dual speakers for laptop, PC, Mac, Surface, Xbox, PS4s, Switch, and phone. So we'll short name to CocoPar for the sake of brevity. The important bits in that SEO name are the 15.6, 1080p, it claims to be an HDR display, and of course USB-C. The price was $204, which was in line with many of the other like-spec USB-C displays she considered. So her spoiler here is that she thinks it's a great display, and she kind of wished it was hers. The CocoPar display sports 2 USB-C ports, both of which support video, audio, and power. So when the display is plugged into a Mac or PC or USB-C iPad, like the iPad Pro, it is bus powered. which means it doesn't require a power supply, which is exactly what you want from a monitor on the go. Allison started plugging it into the USB-C on her 16-inch 2019 MacBook Pro, and the display came up immediately. It was bright, it had good contrast, and it was easily controllable via the Display System Preference pane on the Mac. Her eyes bled a little bit because it's 1920 by 1080, but it really does look so much better than the tiny EOYO. She said that she wants to mention that you can buy a CocoPar display in 4K instead of 1080p, but the price for the 15.6-inch jumps from $204 to $520. If you're going to use it all the time for your primary external display, it might be worth that much money if space is at a premium. But for the occasional use around the house, business travel, or vacation, it sounds a bit steep. If 15.6-inch is too big for you, CocoPar also sells a 13.3-inch 1080p version, but you'll only save $14 to go for the smaller display. And remember how Allison forgot to bring the little plastic stand for the EOYO when she took it to Lindsay's house? No problem with that on the CocoPar because of its built-in kickstand, much like the Microsoft Surface tablet. It's even continuously adjustable up to 45 degrees. And the display and the kickstand have little rubber strips on them so it doesn't slide around. Even with the kickstand, the display at its thickest is less than 1/4 of an inch thick. She loves that kickstand. Lindsay has a USB-C enabled Dell laptop for work, and the CocoPar display worked perfectly with it as well. She was able to control the resolution and the location left and right with the display setting in Windows. She was delighted by how easy it was to set up and powered from the laptop. That was an advantage because she just had the battery replaced in her work laptop, so she's got charge to burn. Next up, Allison wanted to test the CocoPar with her personal 2015 13-inch MacBook Pro, which doesn't have USB-C. The CocoPar also has a mini HDMI connector and comes with a mini to full-size HDMI cable, which allows the MacBook Pro to drive the display. HDMI does not support power delivery, but the CocoPar comes with a USB-C to USB-A cable and a little USB-A charger block. You can connect the charger block to the display's second USB-C connector to deliver the power it needs. Definitely not as elegant as a single USB-C cable, but it's great that it works with older devices without USB-C. She tested the CocoPar with her 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and it worked perfectly, where perfection is defined as just as dumb as you would expect, because the iPad only supports screen mirroring. She supposes a use case for this might be where you wanted to show someone a screen of your iPad, but they were on the opposite side of the table. Other than that, she truly doesn't know why Apple bothers to support just screen mirroring. The CocoPar display can be used with the Nintendo Switch, which might be useful for taking on a vacation or for downtime on a business trip. The Switch does not support power delivery over USB-C, so you will need an external power supply for this setup. The instructions say to use the original Switch power supply and cable, but the included USB-A charger works just fine. Allison read online that the Switch is pretty particular about power, so make your own decision about that. She tested the CocoPar display with Lindsay's Nintendo Switch, and it showed the Switch interface, but the joystick and buttons on the Switch didn't function. Oddly, she was able to take a screenshot and launch into one game, but not play anything. Allison posted a question about this on the Amazon sale page for CocoPar, and a lovely user responded that you have to use an external controller when the Switch is plugged into the display. She took the CocoPar to Kyle's house and tested it with his Switch, and sure enough, removing the controller from the side of the Switch allowed it to function perfectly with the big display. She asked Kyle whether he thought that it would be an advantage to use it this way, and his answer was interesting. He pointed out that if you're alone, you'd be holding the Nintendo Switch with its 6.2-inch screen in your hands, so it wouldn't be much smaller than the perceived screen size of a 15.6-inch screen sitting on a table, if it's far enough away. Then he contemplated whether it would be helpful when playing with other people, but wondered why you wouldn't just connect the Switch to a TV. Connection to a TV is only possible if you tote along the Switch dock, which is kind of bulky. If you're bringing the 15.6-inch display to use along with your laptop, then maybe it would be fun also to use with the Switch. Probably not a compelling reason to buy a USB-C display on its own, but it might be handy. The CocoPar display has a headphone jack and built-in speakers. Allison tested the speakers, and as you might expect, the sound was unimpressive. She would put them in the "if your internal speakers are broken, you'll be able to hear through them" category. As she mentioned, controlling things like brightness and contrast on her 12.5-inch Yo-Yo is really annoying. There's something really unintuitive about the interface, and she often would just give up on it because it got stuck in a mode where she couldn't move between the options. It took her a long time to remember the exact sequence to open up the settings, switch to brightness, and crank it up to something she could see every single time she used the device. In contrast, all puns intentional, the on-screen control on the CocoPar are really easy to access and use. On the right side of the kickstand, there's a little toggle switch that rotates up and down and one button. If you click in on the toggle, the on-screen menu comes up. Flip it up and down to navigate to the menu you want, and then click in to select and modify. The button is used to back out of a menu. That back out of a menu button is what Yo-Yo is missing. The better news is that she tested most of the screen settings on the CocoPar, and the default at which it comes up automatically was already great. Unlike the Yo-Yo, she wouldn't need to be jumping in and out of these menus very often. But if she needed to, she knew it won't be an experimental effort to figure it out every time. She already mentioned that the CocoPar ships with a USB-C to USB-C cable, a USB-C to USB-A cable, and a power adapter, as well as a mini HDMI to HDMI cable. In addition, it comes with not one, but 2 screen protectors and a cleaning cloth to prepare the display. The display is a matte finish, but the screen protectors are glossy. The CocoPar includes a really nice carrying sleeve. It's gray woven fabric with a lovely fuzzy soft interior. The sleeve has a half-height zippered pocket that easily holds all the included cables and a USB-A power adapter. She wanted to take a photo of the display, but it's not really that interesting to look at a photo straight on. So she decided to put it in context and take a photo with it plugged into her 16-inch MacBook Pro. She was already sitting at her desk, and the 32-inch Pro Display XDR was already plugged into it, and she was too lazy to go elsewhere. Then she realized that it actually looked kind of cool. Then it occurred to her, wouldn't it be fun to have the 12.6-inch Yo-Yo display plugged in too? And then she realized the 12.9 iPad Pro was right there, so to keep it from feeling left out, she added it via Sidecar. The result is really cool. Her MacBook Pro driving 5 displays at once, one of which is 6K. She really should have added up all the pixels when she plugged them in. She put a photo of them all running simultaneously in the show notes. She had to admit that the MacBook Pro struggled just a smidge when trying to arrange the displays in the system preferences. She got a spinning pizza wheel for a bit, and every change she made in the display arrangement caused all 5 displays to blank out. She also learned something new that she never knew before. If you have 2 displays arranged, they always have to touch each other in the arrangement section. But if you have 3 or more, a given pair can be shown as not touching each other, even if you show them side by side or up and down from each other. When there's a gap like that, you can simply move a cursor between them. At first, I was having to travel through the XDR display to get from one of the smaller displays to another. She was so entertained by rearranging the displays that she took a screenshot, to show you where she ended up. She also figured out something else, that when you have 5 displays running off of one computer, you're simply never going to find the cursor. She wiggled it like crazy, but simply couldn't find it. She finally found it and then made it huge so she could see while she was playing. But let's bottom line the CocoPar 15.6-inch USB-C display. She can't give any opinion on the longevity of this display, but her initial impressions are really good. If you're looking for an easy to set up and easy to store external display because you go to any kind of temporary workspace, even your kitchen, she can definitely recommend the CocoPar 1080p 15.6-inch USB-C display. There are a lot of really great options out there that are probably just as good, so if this model isn't what you need, she bets that you can find something that would be equally great. But she would look for a multiple USB-C charge/data port, a nice included kickstand, a nice case, and if you don't have USB-C on your devices, you want to make sure it comes with a mini HDMI and an included charger block and cable. For $204, she thinks the CocoPar is a fantastic choice. And if she had to do it over again, she would buy this display instead of the 2.5-inch 2K eYo-Yo.
Well done, Jill. I don't hear Allison.
That was so good. I've been muted so I could cough the whole time. Hey, Steve, can you check your Discord? Because you're running a similar setup to me. Sorry, check activity monitor.
Oh.
Go to CPU and see what percentage it's using.
All right. Hold on.
That was fantastic, Jill. That was such a relief.
Discord is running.
Nice, Jason.
Not that much. 0.5%?
Well, it's 0.5?
0.5. 0.2, 0.3.
It's not usually written that way.
Percent CPU, right? These are percent, so it's less than a percent. 0.2%.
Okay, mine's like a number like 50.
Now there's
30.
Discord Helper, which is the renderer. That's the big
one
boy.
I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
That's
25%.
Now mine's down to 40. It was at like 130.
Did you click one of the GIFs or something, or?
No. I had it in focus. Huh. I mean, it's so bad. Like I'm getting interrupts when I try to type. I can't type a sentence without it putting typos in it.
Huh. Yeah, it
5 CP, so it's 50%. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna record a little bit before dropping this in. Okay, here we go. Not yet. Oh, that's interesting. I got the same chapter mark for. Look at the chapter marks; they're the same. All right, let me circle back and fix that. But let me record first. Why am I still hearing you? You're muted. No, you're not muted. Right. I'm not listening to Discord. Oh, I am listening to Discord. Should have been like this all along. There we go. All right, let me just do a quick record here.
Instead of the 2.5-inch 2K eYo-Yo.
Thank you so much for recording that, Jill. That was fantastic. And I'm sure it was a pleasant respite for the listeners' ears from my raspy voice. You know, Alistair was kidding me this week that I sound like one of Marge Simpson's 3-pack-a-day smoker sisters, Patty and Selma. He's such a good friend. Anyway, if you'd like more of Jill's wonderful content, I can highly recommend her fabulous podcast called Start With Small Steps Podcast. You can find that at smallstepspod.com or, of course, in your podcatcher of choice. Okay, so I'm going to try to put in this chapter mark, see if it's going to let me. Copy link. Copy. Okay, come on. Do it. Nope, it took too long. I can tell.
I'm wondering if there's a way to disable rendering and just have it go when you select it in Discord.
Yeah, I wonder, because this is nonsense. Let me go back to this one. So this is completely wrong. Ah! Select. Copy. Change that. Glad I noticed that. People would be annoyed. Link. Come on.
Did it work?
There. I fixed it.
All right, good.
Okay. Now I need another chapter. Oh, this is screencast. Okay, here we go. Luckily, I did this ahead of time. Because
So are you going to play this?
You done? I was trying to say something. It's hard to talk over you, sweetie. I recorded this ahead of time because I didn't think I could do the talk this long, and I was right. Oh yeah, there they are. Podcatcher of choice. No, I'm not going to play it. I just need to listen to it though for a second. Or of course, in your podcatcher of choice. In part 1 of my screencasting tip series, I talked about how to say, God, I sounded even worse earlier today. Oh, we're not going to listen to that. All right. I am ready to wind us up. Here we go. Well, luckily for my voice and for everybody listening, that is going to wind us up for this week. Hopefully, by next week, I should have a good enough voice. Do not forget to send in your dumb questions, Everything is Fiddly Recordings, comments, and suggestions by emailing me at allison@podfeet.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at podfeet. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. You want to become a patron? podfeet.com/Patreon. Want to do a PayPal one-time donation? podfeet.com/PayPal. Want to join our community? You can do that in Facebook at podfeet.com/Facebook or podfeet.com/Slack if you hate Facebook. Or if you like Facebook, you can do them both. It's a lot of fun in there in both of them. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, except not next week, not on the 25th, we will not be live, but the following week you can head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. And I am now going to get a hot toddy.
I think you earned that one.
Oh, holy cow.
Why don't you relax your voice a little bit? We'll you can just let your fingers do the work.
Oh, remove the live show from the calendar. Good idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do that.
I'll try to remember to send out a reminder
Not one.
that there's no
right?
live show.
From calendar. Good idea. Well, let me listen to this and stay. God, that's gruesome. I wouldn't listen to this. Subscribed. And I am now going to get a hot toddy. There we go. I only have 3 links.
Yeah,
right?
I think that makes sense. Let me just do a quick check. 1, 2, 3. Yep. 3 links.
1, 2, 3. All right, everybody. If you don't mind, I'm going to call it.
I think you should do that.